Ember is probably one of the weakest hunters in NDTG5, but at the same time, he is one of the hardest hunters to master. In this video, we will explore the many sides of Ember, like why is he just weak, because that's I believe one of the easiest labels given to him, despite the time you need to put into him to reach a proper conclusion. Though the time you need to waste to master him is probably the reason why the quickest conclusion you can make is that. With that said, let's begin. Let's first make an introduction to Ember. First, he is a hunter that is specialized in camping shares, but also map control. Chase-wise, he isn't very good, or at least specialized in. His kit consists of 3 abilities, one being unlocked with presence. First is the Inferno Soul, which is pretty much a bar where every time you fill it up, you get a stack. You can use these same stacks to have animated puppets, or use a stack to summon a copy of yourself. You can also choose a target for the Ember to chase if you hold the Inferno Soul button. All you have to do is hold it and wait for a black bubble with a red flame appearing above a survivor, and this will be the target of the Ember. The flame is called precisely the rage meter, and the way you fill it up is through being stunned, chasing survivors, or having ciphers done while no survivors is down. The puppets is Ember's secondary ability. They are objects you can switch position to. As you just saw, you control the puppets to deploy them in a match, but also put them on the floor. But doing so will take longer for the puppet to be placed. Each of Ember's abilities are very versatile, because they can be used for many things. Like you can use the puppets not only to guard the chair, but to chase, or use the Ember for map pressure rather than chase. But using the versatile side of the abilities isn't easy for the most part. For example, the red puppet trick, which is basically you attacking while switching position with the red puppet, which basically creates a long line of hitbox from the puppet to you. This tech isn't hard to perform, but it's actually hard to land it in a real match. Another trick will be teleporting above an obstacle. Doing that will teleport you to the nearest free space, and in this case, outside the wall. Combining these two techs result in this, which is pretty cool, but again, if the survivor was moving, it will be very hard to land it, because you need to be precise in your throw and also think about how the survivor will react to what you're doing or where you think they will be going. And of course, if you make a single mistake, then your puppet will be useless for pretty much until you retrieve it or use a flame on it. So, just how far can you get by mastering Ember? Ember is quite easy to use, but that's only at the surface of the iceberg. Mastering these abilities take way longer than just learning the abilities overall. Also, Ember rely a bit on route chasing, which means chasing without any abilities, and because of that, you need to be really good at route chasing, because your abilities rely on your skill at chasing without any abilities. Okay, now, how do you master the puppets? To master the puppets, you need to learn how they work and their game mechanic. That way, you can exploit these game mechanics and overwhelm the survivors. Yeah, you probably didn't know that placing a puppet actually is useful in some cases. Like this, I placed it through the wall and I teleported early so that I don't teleport to the other side. And when I teleport, the puppet actually shows to the other side, so the puppeteer vaulted. So that was an example of mastery, because I know how I could overwhelm the survivor by surprise, and I got the down that way. Yes, I know it's kind of an exploit, but at the same time, it's hard to land it. You will almost never land it if you're not an experienced Ember. And to end on the puppet subject, here is another cool clip I got. Yeah, I believe I'm the only guy that play Ember on this game and use this tech, weird tech. Anyways, what about the Embers? There's three fundamentals that you need to learn when using the Embers. So first, you need to know that the Ember will target the nearest survivor and the nearest cipher if there's no survivors nearby. Second, the Ember can body block, and third, it can stop projectiles. And that's pretty much it on the subject of the Ember. While it might be frustrating to play Ember because he isn't OP strong and easy, he compensated by being fun. Ember matches are very diverse because you play in many ways. You can use your abilities in many ways, and they're not limited. Like if you want to go over a window by using the puppet, you can. This sort of thing cannot be done by many other hunters, like Gamekeeper can, but under specific circumstances. Since Ember requires a lot of mastery over his game mechanic, you probably will not have fun until you do master him. But when you do master his abilities, trust me, he becomes a fun hunter and also kind of strong. So why is Ember weak? You could argue he is weak because his chase isn't good, but I think that doesn't tell everything you need to know about Ember. Yes, Ember has his weaknesses, but that doesn't override all his strengths. We can all agree that Ember has a great map pressure and camp. He also has a good anti-harass tool, which is the passive where he gains rage meter by being stunned. One thing I want to note is how unforgiving Ember is. While mistakes are punishing for heavy hunters, Ember abilities rarely allow him to make up for his mistakes. So in the case you don't know how to play Ember very well, you might be heavily punished because you don't play Ember in an efficient way, which usually result in you being kited for long. On the subject of Ember chase again, I don't think it is as bad as people think it is. Since it's better than Nightmare Chase, I don't think it's bad because Nightmare Chase is basically the example of a very bad chase. So what ultimately makes Ember seem just weak? We can state 4 reasons. First, Ember is easy to learn but hard to master, and that gives players a false impression that Ember can't get any better since they think they've already mastered Ember. But of course, Ember isn't that simple and he's actually one of the most complicated hunters to main. Second, we have Ember chase style, which is not very easy to understand. Many people doesn't understand how the AI work for the Ember or how to use the puppets for chase. Also, if you don't understand how the abilities works, then you might be confused on how to chase properly. Like, do you know that the Ember has a detection range of around 10 meters? And that even if a survivor is behind a wall, the Ember will detect the survivor. I bet you didn't know. And it's because of things like that which makes Ember kinda hard to understand his true potential when it comes to chase. In Dead by Daylight, there isn't such a problem, like the Knight, which is a killer that kind of has some similar abilities to Ember. We can see that the summoned Knights have range, so you know how far can they detect the survivor, but in Identify there's none. Coming to the third reason, I believe, is the perfectness of gameplay you need to achieve with Ember. The amount of error you can make with Ember is pretty low, because the way his abilities work make mistakes rarely not something you have to make. Like with the puppets, if you mess up at showing it in a useful place, then it will be useless until you pick it up, and if you go pick it up, you will waste time. For the Ember, it is a resource that is quite limited. If you waste it, you have to chase survivors to gain it back. There's nothing such as a cooldown. I will be honest, if Ember's hitbox wasn't so trash, he won't be so bad. But because his hitbox is trash, you can't chase very well without any abilities. And because of that, well, you can't make any mistakes, because Ember heavily rely on his abilities. Coming to the final reason, I believe people think that Ember is just very weak because of the effort you need to make into maining him. If you wanna main Ember, you need to put a lot of time, maybe as much as Mad Eyes, and you won't be as strong as a A-tier character. So Ember will be very weak if played by a player that doesn't main him, but someone who has practiced with Ember will be as strong as a B-tier hunter. So yes, Ember isn't very strong, in fact he's average, but I think average is still pretty good because in rank, average means you can get consistent tie, but yeah, Ember probably isn't the best character to waste your time on if you want result. But you don't play Ember for results. You play Ember for these sort of things. Did I really make a video about Ember just to say that he does cool things? Yes,